Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sustainable Living Through Food, the Now We're Cooking episode. In our last webinar, we talked about pre-cooking preparation, and this one we're going to get into a little bit of sustainable cooking, as well as what we do with all our food at home. My name is Davide Brocco. I'm the sustainability chef at Queen's Hospitality Services. Like I've said in the previous webinar, I have been a chef on campus for a number of years. However, I've been in a sustainability chef role for the last 7 months, and that role, of course, takes me through all initiatives, sustainability on campus, definitely through the lens of food, like food waste and compostable containers and plant-based dining, and of course, local sourcing. But I also work with other Queen's partners as well as community partners for any sustainability initiatives like reduction in greenhouse gases and energy consumption and reductions in that sense. So in the first webinar, we did talk about 7 points that took us to our grocery shop. And those 7 points were, of course, intermingled when touching upon sustainability and living at home. And like I said, I'm at home in my kitchen. So they also touch upon some influence from the current global pandemic, COVID-19, and how that has affected our lives, and how we can use our habits now and tips and tricks to still be sustainable, even though we spend a little bit more time at home and are limited in certain ways. Excuse me. The first in our 5 points, and like I said, they're going to be intermingled. So the first one is shopping in the absence of reusable. So, like I hope most people, I use reusable bags when I go to the grocery store. You can find reusable products all around the house. Reusable bags themselves are very durable, they last a long time, and of course you can wash them. And currently, we aren't able to use things like these mesh bags while we're in the grocery store. And that is really disconcerting, but it gives us an opportunity to look at things sustainably as well. I also have these mesh bags that are breathable that I put my tender vegetables and fruit in, something I'll put in the fridge, and it allows those to breathe in the refrigerator. And those actually replace single-use plastic items like these. So the common habit at the grocery store is to go around to the various areas and put whatever bulk items into these bags. So often we'll take maybe 3 apples and put them in these little bags, 3 oranges, put them in another bag, 4 or 5 kiwi, put them in another bag, and we end up with a lot of these little bags. And yes, we do have uses for these on the outset. However, the aim here is to reduce or eliminate the use of these. First, let's talk about how to reduce the use of these. Well, we go to the grocery store and you don't have to put 3 apples in one and then 3 oranges in another. You can put all of those items to fill this right up. And then when you get to the cash register, you just take them out of the bag so they can all be weighed and charged for separately. So you've now eliminated the use of 3 bags down to 1. Great way and a little bit more efficient than bringing a whole number of them in. Another way to do it is to avoid buying things that are already packaged, things that are already cellophane wrapped, going to the bulk potato section instead of buying that little bag of unrecyclable material with potatoes in it or those beans. You can put them all into one bag and use that up, maybe add a few more things in there just to fill that bag up and trying to get as much use out of this as possible. The other thing that we're looking at to eliminate are these plastic bags, which once again, we can have uses for them on the downstream of our waste. However, it takes quite a few uses in order to really make the carbon footprint a lot less. So let's try to stop bringing them in, or avoid bringing very many of them in at all. How do we do that? Well, when you go to the checkout, don't have to put large parcels or boxes into those bags as well. So that will eliminate quite a few to begin with. Another thing is don't use these plastic bags to carry your groceries out at all. Some people will put all the items directly into the cart and then wheel the cart out after they've paid for it. And waiting in their vehicle or whatever they're using, they'll have their reusable bags in there. So when they get to the car, now they bag up their groceries without having to eliminate the use of your reusables. Maybe you've got a box in the car, something you found around the house to use, but you've now been able to still use your reusables without bringing any of the plastic home with you. Some people are also very aware of contact surfaces, as we all should be. But remember, grocery stores and stores in general are very adamant right now about sanitizing surfaces, as well as we are going to get into disinfecting our groceries when we get home regardless. So it's a good little way of just completely avoiding those types of single-use bags. Bring everything to the cash, take them out one by one. And you will, by doing that process, always remember to bring your reusables. I know it's one of those habits that people talk about at the grocery store and say, oh no, I forgot to bring my reusable bags. Well, doing that even just once, putting everything in the cart and forgetting any reusable bags, when you get to that trunk and you don't have them, you'll remember next time, trust me. Another good way to stop these single-use plastics coming in is buying local. In the previous webinar, we talked about how to buy local, the benefits of buying local, and of course, using some of that original money that we saved through our food budget to purchasing a little bit more local. Well, local vendors typically don't use any bags. Most things come in boxes, and if they do have some prepared items, they come in reusable jars and things like that. So we're now cutting way back on buying anything that will come in a bag or that we are bagging up ourselves. So let's get on with the shop. I have never been more aware of how many things I touch with my grocery bags or my hands than since the COVID-19 pandemic has influenced our lives like this. I still use my reusable bags, and like I said, we bring them home and they are still durable and such. But what do I do before I go to use my reusable bags? Or what do I do when I come home and try not to touch everything with those reusable bags? What I do is I create myself a landing zone. And that landing zone is an area that I have disinfected already. It's an area where I can bring things by and there's nothing there to recontaminate my products. Anything that I'm possibly contaminated, I'm going to deal with in that one area. What do I use to disinfect that? The best method is soapy water and a sponge or a cloth. Don't use paper towel for the waste of paper. We have many items to use for cloths around the house. There are many different uses for old clothing. You can also make your own reusable bags, for example. Something that I'll touch on in the next webinar series. However, we're going to take that sponge and soap and water, which is far and away the best way to do it. And we're going to scrub, and the act of scrubbing is actually what disinfects. It kills the cellular, or breaks down the cellular walls to kill those germs and viruses. You can also use products like vinegar, age-old disinfectant. Works really, really well. Once again, remember, you really need to scrub those surfaces. And of course, use those cloths. Cloths are washable. You can also use some household disinfectants. They aren't typically as effective, but the most effective thing is, of course, when we're wiping. What I'll probably use is my disinfectant on the mop on the floor, and really use that mop to clean up that area where I dropped my reusable bags, and then put that away and use the soap and water on the surfaces. So that's before I go to the grocery store. When I come back, I'm very aware of what I've done while I'm out, as we all are now. Typically, a lot of people are wearing masks. Some people are wearing gloves, though just keeping your hands washed and sanitized constantly while you're out is the best defense. And I'm going to drop those groceries there, and the first thing I'm going to do, as we normally do, is really wash your hands. Wash, and scrub, and rinse. Then you get back onto your groceries. So you take some of these products out of here, and you'll put them on the counter where you got your landing zone, and you'll take your sponge. And of course, many people have been doing this recently, so this, to a lot of people, isn't something new, but you really want to wash those things up. And of course, clean off all that soapy water or vinegar. And in the case of fruits or tender things like vegetables, tender skinned items, you want to fill up your sink a little bit, or maybe a basin or something, with cold water and a little bit of soap, and still do the act of washing them. We should always wash our vegetables. However, you want to take those items, give them a quick wash, and dry, and then it's ready to put away. Now, this whole process is a very long one. This is where I start to employ the help from some of the people in the household that can make this situation go a lot easier. So today I've got the help of my two daughters, Diem and Romy, and they are typically there to assist putting groceries away. The first thing that they do when I come home from the grocery store, or when one of our family members comes home from the grocery store, is wash their hands and make sure that they aren't contaminating more. So what I would do is I typically take my products that I've already washed and put them to an area that hasn't been touched by anything I brought in, and they will, if you don't mind, put those things away. Romy, if you can put the orange away, please. Put there in the fruit bowl. And once those things are away, it's very important to note that we would love to make sure, and this isn't always easy with kids, but we'd love to make sure to keep everything organized, neat, and tidy. This helps in our first step, which was in the last webinar, about making your weekly plan and weekly shopping list and taking your inventory. If everything's neat and tidy, one, it will be easier to clean, and two, it will be easier to see what you already have and you don't have to buy next time. And getting those areas neat and tidy means that, yes, it is easier to get down into that cleaning. We're always aware of cleaning our products ahead of time. We're always aware of cleaning our kitchen and our house ahead of time, but now with the current situation, we really want to get at those germs and get that all cleaned up. So once we've got all our products put away, we're going to go back to our landing area, and Rona, can you show them how we scrub? And we're going to scrub all that back and clean it all up, and then we'll wash our hands and we'll be ready for the next step, which is what most people look forward to when they're talking to a chef who's doing a show. They want to see some cooking. Okay, Rona, that's perfect. Put that in there. So, when we're talking about sustainability and cooking and all the food products in our house, there are a lot of topics here, but the biggest thing that we're looking at is trying to use everything that we've got. And when I say everything, I don't mean every ingredient, I mean everything that is part of that ingredient. That's the culture of zero waste. That's the beginning of using everything, a full circle of making sure we're using everything up in some capacity, and then at the end, also using what we've got left over. We'll get into that in a little bit. In the last webinar, we talked about trying to use some ingredients to spread across a few recipes. Well, we also talked about some dog biscuits that a young lady likes to make, and we're going to incorporate that recipe that she likes to find, and she's currently making, as well as a salad that Diem's going to make, and a soup that I'm going to make. And these are three dishes that all of us can work together on and keep each other busy. So the first thing I've got is sweet potato. Yeah, please. I've got an onion, some celery, carrot, an apple, some baby spinach, a can of beans. This is going to come up in our conversation later, and a little piece of garlic. Now, most times, what will happen is you're going to take your sweet potato, and this is where the chef actually does some demonstrating, and he's going to peel it. And once I've peeled that sweet potato, my kids are going to go, ooh, ah, look at how well he peels that sweet potato. He's so efficient. I've been doing it for years and years, haven't I?
Yeah.
I have been.
Sure.
And I'm going to peel up that sweet potato really well. And I've got some sweet potato peels. I'll put that aside for now. And then I'm going to take my carrot. I'm also going to peel that one. So professionally and well. And once those carrot peels are ready, put that aside. Now I've got some carrot peels and sweet potato peels. Romy, what are we going to do with these?
We got them in the pot.
That's right. And this pot is for what?
The dog biscuit.
That's right. These are the ingredients for the dog biscuits. So we've got some carrots and sweet potato peels, which are still edible parts of the vegetables, but are typically considered scraps and unusable. I'm also going to ask my kids to help me out here. So I'm going to have, in the meantime, Romy peel the apple. If you don't mind, Romy, you can just peel that here. And while Romy's doing that, just gently, sweetie. While Romy's doing that, she's going to take the peelings and she's going to put them right into the pot. It's keeping Romy interested and it's keeping her busy. And in the meantime, we're going to talk to Diem. We're going to say, Diem, I've got the ends of my sweet potato. I'm going to put them in there. Now what am I going to do with the rest of the sweet potato?
You need to make it nice and square so you can chop it nicely.
That's right, chop it nicely. We'll cut off the end. We'll make it nice and square. Of course, sweet potatoes are tough. So maybe leave the cutting to yourself and have the other parts ready for the kids to do. So I'm going to chop up that sweet potato quickly. And I'm going to take that sweet potato and I'm going to put it into a little bowl. And the other part that I'm going to leave Diem to do is the seasoning and the preparation for that sweet potato. So now I've got both kids doing something and they're both able to, I'm able to watch them both do it. Romy, how are you doing over there?
Good.
Okay. So I've still got some rest of that sweet potato left. I had those ends and things like that. I'm going to do the same with the carrot. I'm going to cut off the ends, put those aside, and I'm going to chop up that carrot. And maybe I'll add those carrots to Diem's sweet potato mix, or maybe I'll just throw them directly into the spinach. I'll put them in there. And she's going to season all that up and put it in for roasting, or I can put them in for roasting. I'm going to do the same with the celery. I'll take off the leaves, which are typically not used for a lot of things, although you can eat them, even part of the salad. And I'll dice up the celery. That's fine, you can just put them aside. And I'll do the same with the onion. I'll peel off part of the onion and I'll put it aside. And once again, I will chop it up. Heck, even my garlic. I'll take my garlic, I'll unhusk it, and put those aside. So what I have were good parts of my sweet potato, good parts of that carrot. I've got good parts of that celery. I've used those interchangeably for my, good shot. I've used those interchangeably for my soup and my salad that Diem's going to make. I now have a bunch of scraps. Some carrot ends and onion peels and parts of that celery, the garlic husk that I put in there. I've also got an apple core. So what I would do now, Romy, if you don't mind, I'll take that. Perfect. Thank you very much. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut that apple in pieces. I'm going to give Romy some more parts for her. Here you go, you can put that in your ingredients for your dog treats. I'm going to take the hearts of the apples. And we'll try and use up all these bits. And as you can see, in the meantime, everyone has been waiting patiently. I take that core and I put it in with my scraps. Dia, what are we going to do with these scraps here?
Well, we're going to put them in the soup.
That's right. We're going to use them for our soup stock. So what's typically considered an inedible food scrap is now actually going to be somewhat part of that edible. Can you give me the stock pot, please? Give people the tasks that they're comfortable with and tasks that are going to save you a little bit of time. So I'm going to put those scraps in there. Diem, if you wouldn't mind, we'll fill it with water eventually. We'll put it on the stove for boiling, and it's an easy way to make a stock. Romy has kept herself busy. Now that she's done, she's going to take the pot, and also I will accompany her. You can put that down, Romy. Grab the pot, and then accompany her to the stove. She would have put a little bit of water in. And put that on, and we would turn it on, don't turn it on please, and let it cook up a little bit until it's soft and like a pie filling almost. Typically at this point we'd have some diced apples, we'd have those beautiful diced celery, carrots, and onions. We'd also have the baby spinach, and of course we've got the roasting sweet potato going on as well. Those are all going to be part of Diem's delicious salad. We almost forgot about one ingredient, didn't we? The can of beans. That's right. So, can of beans. Good for shelf life, not good sustainably because of the actual packaging comes in. However, it doesn't mean that we can't use every last piece of this can and the wrapping it comes in. A few years ago, there was a training called the Forward Food Culinary Training. It's put on by the Humane Society International, and it is a training of about 35 chefs, which they do everywhere anyway, and it shows some ideas and some inspiration on plant-based dining. Gives recipes, and of course they taught us some tricks. The chef that was in charge taught us that you could take the juice from the beans and whip it like meringue. So instead of draining out those beans into your sink, and they all go down the sink and drain, you actually keep that juice or that liquid, and you can whip it into peaks with sugar and vanilla, and it came out just like meringue. If you put it on pie toppings, you can actually brush it on doughs and pastries in order to make it shine. And what I've noticed, and I've used this quite often, is I can use that bean juice to make batters and dough. It actually works like an egg replacer, right, Romy? Mm-hmm. So what would happen if I were to use those? Sometimes I'll use it in crepe batter, sometimes I'll use it in pancake batter. You can definitely use it in dough, and Romy happens to be making dough today. So Romy, if you wouldn't mind coming over with me? So typically what we would do is we would take the we take the ingredients right there. Take the ingredients from the dog treats, and we will puree them until they're nice and smooth. Maybe we put them into our bowl. And then we would take our bowl, and while we're making our dough, I'll have both kids. Since Deanne's waiting for her sweet potatoes to roast and has this wonderful prep already done by her chef dad, she'll take those ingredients that she had, add some whole wheat flour, maybe a little bit of peanut butter, and add that bean juice in. And use that to replace the eggs that were in the original recipe. It's a cool little trick. It'll come out just like this dough. So there's the dough for the biscuits. Let me tell you, having a dough available for kids to play with or to work on or to experience is invaluable. Even I love to play with the dough and make shapes and knead it and do all kinds of different things with it. So that'll keep Romy a little bit busy for a while as she works the dough out. In the meantime, Jim and I have some work to do, don't we? Yeah. Right. So Jim and I have got to come over here and we've got to do what with our stock?
Well, we've got to put it into the soup.
That's right. So in the meantime, we had put all those scraps, those good parts of the carrots that I still had that weren't all perfectly chopped, and those parts of the sweet potato and onion and all those ends and things that were still the edible parts of that. Yeah. I put it in there. Maybe I'll add some of those beans we had. That, you know, we open that can, we're going to use the beans, and we're going to take, we're going to take those beans and we'll put a little bit in your salad, and we're going to put some in my soup. And then we'll make a nice protein and nutrient-rich salad or soup for a meal. Yeah. You've got a meal, I've got a meal, Romy's got a dog meal there. So we're going to take the inedible scraps, and we boil them down, and we're going to do what? Again, you're going to hold that nice and tightly, and we would strain those out into our soup. Maybe we'll make a pureed soup. And those apple cores are going to give it what kind of flavor, again?
Like an apple and bitter apple.
It'll make a nice little tart flavor, a little bit of apple flavor. So once we've drained that off, we're going to put those aside to deal with later. In the meantime, Romy has rolled out her dough and she's cut little biscuits. Those would go in the oven. Dean would take out the sweet potatoes. Thank you very much. See the help I get? It's like I'm not even doing anything. Take out the sweet potatoes. You want to show them the sweet potatoes? So we let those cool, and that's going to go in our salad. So we put our salad together. And maybe at this point, while Romy's cookies are baking, Dean can now make a vinaigrette. It's a really fun, easy thing to do. Kids, for some reason, love vinegar. My kids love red wine vinegar. So Dean would take, it's right there, she would take a little bowl and make her own vinaigrette, and that will keep her busy for a little bit. And she'll make a seasoning for that salad. Maybe we're not going to use that salad for dinner tonight. Maybe we'll save it for lunch tomorrow. But the vinaigrette's made and the salad's already mixed, so tomorrow we just have to dress it and we're all set. That's cool. All right, that's perfect. So once Romy's got all her things baked, that's good for now. We're going to go and get the cookies out of the oven. Okay? Through the magic of the internet, we already have some cookies baked. There we go, Romy. So you want to help kids and be involved with any housemates and have conversations about things like looking to use all the ingredients. Those are the cookies there, the dog biscuits. Looking to use all the ingredients that we have on the table. So then we talk about the end result. We've got our delicious soup, and maybe that will be dinner tonight. Maybe that will be dinner tonight. We've got a salad for tomorrow. We've got dog biscuits for the rest of the week. We've now got everything used up, all the scraps, all the ends, somehow have been used, except for two things. The two last things that come out of our cooking is where we need to be most sustainable. Using up everything means also using up maybe the organic products that come back, that come back from draining things out of our stock. These are still going to end up coming out of our cooking experience here. But what can we do with these organic parts? These organic parts are extremely useful in many ways, particularly for compost. So just because we boil them doesn't mean they're not organic and can still go into your compost. Maybe you have your own compost and you like that nutrient-rich soil. Maybe your neighbors have some. Maybe you can collect those pieces into a smaller bucket and share them with the community garden. I know we've got some community gardens at West Campus, and of course there are a few across campus, but those types of materials that are organic and plant-based can go into any compost pile. They can also go as animal feed for maybe someone who raises some pigs or any livestock. So we have a lot of uses before we send those into any municipal compost program, which is still a good thing to send to, because the municipality will turn it into a market valued commodity like compost and then be able to sell that as well. So it basically helps everyone out. However, we always want to avoid sending any organic material to landfill. It creates extreme amounts of methane and it's extremely harmful to our atmosphere and the air we breathe. So now we're going to talk about the last thing that's coming out, the actual can and the wrapping that it comes in. What do we do with this can and the wrapping that comes in? You know, most people recycle it. And yes, it does have a commodities value when it comes out into the recycling stream, but we're trying to avoid the recycling part at this point. We're trying to figure out cool little things we can do. This is a can. Let me put it a little bit closer. This is the can that I originally opened, and I put the lid inside, and I would normally fill this with some dirt, put a couple of seeds in, and grow flowers, especially now. You can grow flowers in these cans all the way until November outside and in the house, even past that. So you would put the seeds in, put the dirt in, and it'll become great feed, especially wildflowers, for our insects and bees and help our general, all the plants in our garden everywhere work really well together. But I've also added some toothpicks. I use the paper around that can to hold the toothpicks in place. And why did I put the toothpicks? Most people who garden know. Squirrels. Squirrels and chipmunks and small little animals that love to be outside also love to eat the seeds that are in the dirt that you've put in your can. So they will try and dig that out. I don't blame them. But the toothpicks, which they can see really well, will deter them. And of course the toothpicks are compostable. These are just little wooden bits. You can use whatever you like to protect them. Anything that will deter them from digging out your seeds and growing your flowers. So that's a really good way to use that can. Another thing that we do sometimes, since we all like to paint and have a lot of painting projects, we fill it with water and use that can to rinse our paintbrushes. Also, that edge of the can is always a good little sharp edge to clean that water out of that paintbrush. You can come up with a lot of different plans. The important thing is that we're looking at what came out of our cooking, and now we've used everything. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're using all the bits. We're getting everything out. We determine what materials we have left over and what to do with them. That creates a culture of zero waste. In the next webinar, we're going to delve deeper into that culture of zero waste and what it means to improve our downstream waste by looking at our upstream waste and what we bring in. I really hope this has been very informative for everybody. I hope there's some cool little tips and tricks you'll share with other people, and I really hope this starts up a really great conversation about sustainable living at home, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Davide. That was wonderful. I would like to open it up to any questions that people might have. We have been getting a couple questions throughout, so if you have a moment, Davide, I'll pose those to you as people can answer any or ask any other questions they may have. While we're waiting for the questions, I'd just like to take a moment to thank Davide and his two beautiful assistants there who have helped out so much. You guys were fabulous. I'd also like to point out that this initiative has been the work of many people within Queens, including our hospitality services section, our HR department, the organizational development and learning team, the office of the vice principal of finance and administration, and our sustainability office are all the people who have made it possible for this particular session. So thank you so much. I'll also mention there were a couple questions about the recipes and some of the tips and tricks that were coming out of this. So I'll just mention we will be providing a little handout with some of those the items covered here today to everyone who's joined today. So you can expect that in your email soon. And I'll just get started on the questions. So feel free if anyone has some new questions. One of the questions that came up, Davide, was where people can get those mesh bags. A few people mentioned just Loblaws and online, but if you have any suggestions of maybe some sustainable or local sources for those mesh bags for food, people are interested in that.
All right, so typically when you're looking for items like that, if you're looking locally, you want to ask Sustainability Kingston. They'll probably have some resources there. Places like the Grocery Basket, they will have some contacts to be able to source some of those. And you can also use old clothing to make those. Yes, these ones are really mesh and pretty see-through, but if you have a very light t-shirt or something, or maybe an old workout shirt that unfortunately the plans of working out didn't go as well, you can also use those. They're very simple. A lot of sustainability groups, so people that are more sustainably minded or groups that really push for sustainable change in our communities, search them out. And a good way, a good resource there would be the local markets.
Great, thank you. Another question someone was asking with the scraps that you used for the dog treats. They said, is there any suggestions if they don't have a dog or any pets at home of what they can do?
Absolutely. These dog treats, I mean, we call them dog treats at home, but you can actually make them as any sort of biscuit. The ingredients were sweet potato, apple, carrot, peanut butter in this case, although you can use anything really pasty to make a difference. You can actually make your own biscuits for yourself. Whole wheat flour, maybe you can even make them into granola bars. You can use that filling to make your own granola bars. It's good for people to eat as well as a dog treat. In this case, I mean, people with dogs always appreciate when somebody makes a homemade treat for their pets. So if you want to share with your neighbors, feel free.
Great. And one final question. Someone asked if you don't have time to use the scraps right away, could you keep them in the fridge for a few days to cook down for stock later?
Absolutely. And we're going to get into this in the next webinar about using your household equipment and your tech, but I'll give you a little prequel. Remember those bags that we talked about where you put three items into one single service plastic bag? That's a good use on the other end. You put all those scraps into one of those bags that you unfortunately had to bring home and put those in the freezer. Or you can use a Tupperware. You can put them in the freezer for up to a month, even. You can keep those in the fridge for up to 3 days. And you know what? Here's another trick. Maybe you don't get to it the first couple of days. The third day, you can make your stock, drain it, cool down the stock, and then keep that in the fridge for another 3 days. You can also freeze those leftover cooked down items. Let's say you've already cooked that stock down, and those items you don't have a chance, maybe it's winter outside, you haven't got to see your neighbors in a little while, you can put those items in the freezer and then you can hand those over as well.
Great. That's all the questions that have come in, but if anyone has any other ones, feel free to send us an email. I'll just put one in the chat, I guess. And thank you so much for joining, and thank you to Davide and Dia and Romy for your amazing services, and we'll see you guys at the next week's seminar, I hope. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you next week.